public North Queensland certainly has plenty of. Last week we talked about the Licuata ramsii, which is the North Queensland fan palm, and this week we're looking at Alexandra. Alexandras grow well all over Queensland. They're here on the banks of the Mossman River. They're doing really well. Now I like the palm because simply it is self-cleaning. That means it drops the fronds as it grows up towards the sky. And that's a problem with a lot of palms, they're very dirty. And when they get really tall, like 10 metres, you can't get up and cut the fronds off, or the seed pods for that matter. So self-cleaning palms are excellent. Now this palm probably grows anywhere 10 metres to 12 metres, but it really likes to grow as it is here in clusters. That means they come up in clumps all over the place. It has wonderful seed pods too, by the way. They start off cream, go to a green colour and end up a yellowy orange tinge, and they look fantastic hanging off the side of the tree, and they simply drop off when they're all ripe and finished. So this palm does well. Probably got to be careful when it's a young juvenile plant if you're in a frosty cold area, but most areas in Queensland looks fantastic. Look for it in nurseries in clusters, or 1 or 2 in a pot, or even 3, because later on they look so much better than the solitary palm sitting on its own. Alexandra palm, great for anywhere in Queensland.
Paronella Park is the type of place where you never know quite what to expect, and I have to tell you, this was beyond my wildest dreams. It is quite incredible. It's the lifelong work of an amazing man called Jose Paronella, and rather than do the injustice of trying to describe it to you, I'd like to show you. Work started here in 1929, and in 1935 the park was officially open to the public. Since then, Paronella Park has weathered a few storms, literally, because in 1946 heavy rain extensively damaged the park, and then floods in 1967, 72 and 74 continued to wreak havoc. The main disaster, however, was in 1979, when a fire swept through the park and destroyed everything the Paronella family had worked so hard to achieve. There have been more natural disasters since then, but the dream does live on, thanks to Mark and Judy Evans, the current owner-operators of Paronella Park. Mark gave us a tour, which gave us an insight into the massive amount of work that has gone into the park over many years by an amazing family, the Paronellas. Mark, the property is so different. What was Jose thinking when he got started?
Well, basically Jose had a dream. He wanted to develop a tourist park. And what he was looking for when he found this property was something different. A property that in what he's developed here has a 50-foot waterfall. It was situated on a main highway, the Bruce Highway. It had another stream, freshwater stream in Teresa Creek, and he took that as the base to work from.
Just amazing. Now, a lot of the original structures are still here, aren't they?
They most certainly are, and I think this surprises a lot of people because of the nature's tremendous force, and what we find is that he was able to build a number of buildings. First of all, he started off with the grand staircase, and that staircase he built as a means initially to allow the transportation of materials for the park, for the construction of the park. He then went on to build the cottage, and that cottage was the residence. The rest of the park we find is the lower refreshment rooms. They operated as tea rooms right up through till 1946. Unfortunately, nature hit it with its biggest flood in the history of the park and put it out of action.
And when you think about people at home laying pavers or putting down concrete, you just marvel at how he could have built things like this.
Well, this is it. Everybody marvels at the way Jose was ahead of his time. Each and every part of the construction, the hydroelectric plant, the buildings that really in those days weren't thought of, the way he was able to harness the waters to generate the electricity, the way he was able to again harness the waters to run the fountains. And you just look at in wonderment at how he's made it blend with his own hands.
And it's actually been really popular as well for films, hasn't it?
Yes, in fact in 1992, the movie Sniper was filmed here, American movie, and then in 1993 an Australian production, the movie Traps, was filmed here, both using all those wonderful pieces of the park.
Terrific. Now the other wonderful piece of the park, apart from the buildings, is the gardens. We might go down and take a look.
Let's do.
Okay. Jose being ahead of his time in regard to his buildings and his structures, but the choice of gardens is also very important.
It certainly was. In fact, there's no doubt that in the years leading up to the development of the park, Jose looked closely at the sorts of things he could do. And a blending of planting that he did and the natural features of the area was something he was looking for.
Now, he was very much a greenie, wasn't he?
He most certainly was. In fact, if you look through the park, you find some 7,500 trees were planted back in the 1930s.
This wasn't done then, was it?
No, it wasn't. In fact, I think a lot of the locals thought him quite an eccentric to be planting trees at a time when trees were being cut down and used for timber. The other thing he was able to do, though, was to blend the trees that he planted with some of the lovely natural features here, like the king ferns. And I think a lot of people aren't aware that the king ferns are growing in this part of the country in such large numbers. The other thing that we find too is he's taken something that very often is thought of a bit of a pest, the bamboo, and that has grown through into a forest, and now people walk through it there in amazement and look in wonderment at what's there.
Now, we mentioned the floods being quite devastating to all other areas, but for here it was a real blessing, wasn't it?
It was. We were here about 6 weeks, and we had a flood, a rather large flood. It was suggested by many locals that flood was the biggest flood since 1946. And we found, yes, there was a lot of cleaning up, but the debris, the silt that was left after the clean-up was able to enhance the park. And we now find that the park is growing bigger and stronger than ever.
So this is a very unique part about North Queensland history, and it's wonderful that you're carrying it on. So thank you for having us here.
Thank you.
Paronella Park is at Mena Creek, just south of Innisfail in North Queensland. Wandering around the grounds, you find yourself feeling a certain affinity towards the dreams and aspirations of a most remarkable family, Jose and Margarita Paronella.